What if the person you see every day, but never speak to, is the one you need to meet the most? It's almost midnight in Manhattan, and a fierce storm is raging. Aisha, a young art student, dashes into her apartment building, soaked from the rain. The only thing standing between her and home is a rickety old elevator. Inside, she finds her quiet, bookish neighbor, Victor. Just as the awkward silence begins, the elevator jolts to a stop, plunging them into darkness. Trapped together, their shared fear breaks the ice. Aisha admits her claustrophobia and the pressure she feels to succeed. Victor, a college professor she always thought was odd, reveals his own deep-seated fear of being forgotten. In that small metal box, these two strangers share their most private anxieties, finding an unexpected connection. When the doors finally open, they aren't just neighbors anymore. They're two people who, for a brief moment, made each other feel seen. Sometimes, the most meaningful connections happen when you're completely stuck. Imagine being trapped in an elevator at midnight with a total stranger. That's what happens to Aisha, a young art student, and Victor, a quiet professor. One stormy night, the elevator clunks to a stop, plunging them into darkness. At first, it's just awkward silence and panic. Aisha is terrified of small spaces, and Victor seems distant and cold. But as the minutes turn into an hour, they start talking, really talking. Aisha admits her fear of disappointing her parents, and Victor confesses his own quiet fear of being forgotten. In that tiny metal box, two strangers, who lived in the same building but never spoke, finally see each other. They find an unexpected connection, sharing their deepest anxieties. When the doors finally open, they aren't just neighbors anymore. They're two people who feel a little less alone in the world. Sometimes, the most meaningful connections happen in the most unexpected places. Ever feel like a complete stranger understands you better than anyone? On a stormy night in Manhattan, just minutes before midnight, a drenched art student named Aisha rushes into her apartment building. She steps into a flickering, ancient elevator where a quiet, bookish neighbor, Victor, is already inside. They've seen each other 1,000 times but never spoken. Suddenly, the elevator jerks to a halt, plunging them into darkness. Trapped together, their polite silence shatters. Aisha, terrified of enclosed spaces, starts talking. Victor, who seems awkward and distant, listens. He reveals his own fears, sharing a past trauma that makes him surprisingly human. She confesses her dread of disappointing her family. He admits his fear of being forgotten. In that metal box, suspended between floors, two lonely souls connect. They share their deepest anxieties, finding an unexpected comfort in their shared vulnerability. When the doors are finally pried open, they're no longer strangers. Sometimes, the most meaningful connections happen in the most unlikely places. It's a rainy night in Manhattan. A young woman, Aisha, rushes into her building, soaked, and steps into an elevator, where she finds her quiet neighbor, Victor. The doors close, the elevator jerks, and then, darkness. They're trapped. What starts as a claustrophobic nightmare slowly becomes a moment of unexpected connection. In the flickering emergency light, Aisha, a talkative art student, and Victor, a reserved literature professor, start to share more than just a confined space. They talk about their fears. For Aisha, it's the fear of failure, of disappointing her parents. For Victor, it's the quiet fear of being forgotten, of not mattering. To strangers, who only ever nodded in the hallway, find a rare moment of honesty in a metal box. When the doors finally pry open, they step out, not as neighbors, but as two people who feel a little less alone in the world. This is a story about how sometimes getting stuck is the only way to move forward. Picture this: Upper Manhattan, just before midnight. Heavy rain is pouring down, the wind is howling, and a young woman named Aisha, completely drenched, is rushing into her apartment building. She's carrying a tote bag, overflowing with sketchbooks. The lobby is dim, almost eerie, and the old elevator door is open, its light flickering like a dying candle. Aisha hurries to the elevator and presses the button. Inside, a man is already standing there. Victor Hale, about 45, looking a bit awkward and bookish, clutching a bag of groceries. They're neighbors, the kind who've seen each other 100 times but never actually spoken a word. "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to startle you," Aisha says, breaking the silence. Victor, stiffly, replies, "You didn't come in." She steps inside, and the heavy doors slide shut, sealing them in. The elevator begins to move, humming and then jerking slightly. Aisha shifts nervously. "It always does that," she mutters. "I keep telling the super." Victor just gives a slight nod, offering no comfort. The elevator climbs, 1 floor, 2, and then, with a deafening clunk, it stops. The lights flickered violently and then plunged them into total darkness. Aisha lets out a small gasp. No, no, no. Not tonight. A moment later, a single, dim, emergency light sputters to life, casting long, strange shadows across their faces. Panic starts to set in for Aisha. She frantically presses the emergency alarm button. A crackle of static, then a disembodied voice from the speaker. "Maintenance will arrive soon. Please remain inside." The voice sounds distant, unhelpful. Beside her, Victor is just breathing. Slowly, controlled. It's almost unnerving. "Are you not scared?" Aisha asks, her voice trembling. He turns to her, his expression unreadable in the dim light. "I am," he says. "I just hide it better." A dry, honest answer. Against all odds, Aisha lets out a nervous laugh. The silence that follows is heavy. Aisha can't stand it. She starts fidgeting. "I hate closed spaces," she blurts out. "Elevators, tunnels, MRI machines." To her surprise, Victor nods in understanding. "Me too," he admits. "I once spent 8 hours stuck in one. Since then, I take the stairs when I can." Hearing this, Aisha softens. This man, this stranger she'd always thought of as just a weird book guy, suddenly seems human. "Why'd you take it today?" she asks, genuinely curious. Victor holds up his grocery bag with a faint, awkward smile. "Ice cream," he says. She laughs, a real, genuine laugh this time. And just like that, the tension begins to melt away, just like his ice cream. The storm rumbles outside, and the elevator car shakes slightly, a grim reminder of their situation. "You live on the 10th floor, right?" Aisha asks, trying to fill the silence. "I always see you with books." Victor nods. "I teach literature at Hunter College, mostly night classes." After a short pause, she introduces herself. "I'm Aisha, graphic design student at NYU." He nods politely. But the fear is making Aisha talkative, filling the space with words. "My parents think I'm sleeping at a friend's place tonight," she confesses. "But I was working late at the studio." Victor listens with a surprising amount of patience. "Parents worry," he says softly. "Mine still texts me at 45. Aisha smiles again, feeling a strange sense of connection. After a while, the silence feels less threatening. Aisha gives up on standing and slides down to sit on the floor. A moment later, Victor slowly joins her. The confined space starts to feel almost safe. "You know what really scares me?" Aisha says, her voice barely a whisper. "Failing. Being the disappointing daughter. It feels like one wrong step and my whole world comes crashing down." Victor looks at her, and she can see in his eyes that he understands completely. "Fear of failure," he says, his voice full of an unexpected wisdom, "ruins more people than failure itself." She looks at him, surprised by his kindness. "And you? What scares you?" she asks. A long silence hangs in the air. When Victor finally speaks, his voice is soft, vulnerable. "Being forgotten," he says, "not mattering to anyone." In that moment, they are no longer just neighbors. They are two strangers, sharing their deepest, most private fears in a suspended metal box. Suddenly, the elevator shakes violently, followed by a loud clang from above. Without thinking, Aisha grabs Victor's arm. He looks down at her hand, then back up at her face. They hear footsteps overhead, and then a beam of a flashlight cuts through the darkness from the ceiling panel. "We got you," a voice calls out. "Sit tight," opening it now. Aisha closes her eyes, overcome with relief. Victor lets out a long, heavy breath he didn't even realize he was holding. The doors slowly pry open, flooding the small space with the bright, welcoming light of the hallway. Freedom. Aisha gets to her feet first, but before she steps out, she turns back to Victor. "Thank you," she says, her voice full of emotion, "for being human in there. For the first time all night, Victor gives her a tiny, genuine smile. "You too," he replies. She steps out and starts walking towards her apartment down the hall. But then she stops and turns around. Victor is still standing in the elevator, holding his bag of melting ice cream, staring at the floor as if lost in thought. "Good night, Victor," she says softly. He looks up, and their eyes meet. "Good night, Aisha." The elevator doors close gently between them. For the first time in a very long time, Victor doesn't feel invisible. And as Aisha unlocks her door, she realizes she doesn't feel so alone anymore either. Sometimes, the most profound connections happen in the most unexpected places. It's a reminder that we all carry our own hidden fears, and that a little bit of shared humanity can light up even the darkest moments. What did you think of this story? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more. Ever been stuck in a box with a stranger? I don't mean figuratively, like at a boring party. I mean a literal metal box, suspended between floors, in the middle of the night. This is the story of Aisha and Victor, two neighbors who'd only ever shared awkward glances in the hallway. One rainy night, just before midnight, they both find themselves in their building's ancient, rickety elevator. Aisha, a young art student, is soaked from the storm, her bag full of sketches. Victor, a middle-aged literature professor, is clutching a bag of groceries. They're total strangers, sharing a small, confined space. The doors close, the elevator jerks upwards, and then, clunk, darkness. The only thing worse than being trapped in an elevator is being trapped with someone you don't know. The emergency light flickers on, casting long, eerie shadows. Aisha, who hates closed spaces, starts to panic. Victor, on the other hand, seems oddly calm. He tells her he's scared too, he just hides it better. This small moment of honesty is the first crack in the wall between them. As the minutes tick by, turning into what feels like hours, the silence becomes unbearable. So, they start to talk. Aisha confesses her claustrophobia. Victor admits he once got stuck in an elevator for 8 hours, and now usually takes the stairs. So why didn't he today? He holds up his grocery bag with a sheepish smile and says one word: ice cream. And just like that, the tension breaks. The awkward, weird neighbor suddenly seems ... human. The storm rages outside, and the elevator occasionally shudders, reminding them of their predicament. But inside this little box, something unexpected is happening. They learn about each other. He's a professor. She's a design student. She talks about the pressure from her parents, the fear of failing and becoming a disappointment. He listens, not with judgment, but with a surprising empathy. Then, she asks him what he's afraid of. His answer is quiet, and it hangs in the air between them, being forgotten, not mattering to anyone. In that moment, they are no longer just strangers. They are two people sharing their deepest, most private fears in the most unlikely of places. This is what The Elevator at Midnight is all about. It's a story that asks a simple question. How well do we really know the people we see every day? The ones we pass in the hall, stand next to in line, or share a silent elevator ride with. Sometimes, all it takes is a power outage and a shared pint of melting ice cream to see the person behind the stranger. It's a reminder that we all carry our own fears and our own hopes, and that a moment of connection can be found when we least expect it. It's a powerful short film about vulnerability, empathy, and the surprising ways we find comfort in each other. It shows us that even in our most isolated moments, we're not truly alone. You can watch the full film right now. The link is in the description below. Trust me, it's a story that will stay with you long after the credits roll. It might even make you say hello to your neighbor tomorrow. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more film breakdowns.